the number of kids, and they kill them, and they do it for either satanic ritual or to make a movie out of. I mean, this is beyond imagination.
And then they sell the movie.
And then they sell the movie, yeah. God.
Well, there was an article written about 10 or 12 years ago. I think I said this earlier on one of these shows, Alex.
Yeah.
They estimate 2,500 children a year are kidnapped and murdered. But I think it's higher than that.
I do too. Yeah, I do.
Because the cult alone, satanic cult, human sacrifices alone is going to be more than that.
Jeez.
What did some of the other emails have to say, Noreen?
A lot of people have expressed their prayers for me, for Johnny, especially in this latest situation with Gannon, and whether or not he might be Gannon. And if he's not Gannon, then continuation of prayers and good wishes wherever he's at. But I think the majority of people that have written to me believe that it is him by what they've put in their emails.
Well,
and a lot of them have expressed when is there going to be the DNA test? Has that been agreed upon? And all of that. And we don't have that yet.
I don't think he's going to do it. Do you?
I don't think so either.
No.
What? How many emails did you receive, roughly?
I think I've probably gotten about 10 or 15, and some of them did it in a straight email to me, and some of them did it in the feedback section of my website, where you have a chance to just type in a little paragraph or whatever you want based on the information from the website as well. And it's a convenient way to do it, but they had also watched this show or listened to this show because we had put information on the website letting people know that these shows were coming out. And that helps get the word out there, because I get a lot of hits on my website.
I bet you do. Did you have any negative emails?
Not one. Not one.
And they don't dare stick their head up.
And a lot of times when there's a cross-section of people with, thoughts and opinions, sometimes you'll get a comment or two where they don't agree, but this didn't happen this time. People have been very glued to the radio, actually, to hear all facets of this story.
Alex, let me ask you about your emails.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about them.
Well, I'll tell you real quick. Right now, I have in emails 1,814 up there. Well, we get a tremendous amount every day, and so many of them. I probably will get 100 or more a day in reference to the show and talking about Johnny and people throwing support our way and saying, because I said, because a lot of people have tried to have me not do this because they're either afraid for me because of all the strange things. I mean, look at all the people that have been killed so far, just people who have wanted to open this up before the public, and all of a sudden they end up dead.
Well, some of them have opened it up and ended up dead.
Right. So many people around the world are very concerned. I said, well, I'm sorry, I've got to do it though. I mean, because this is the worst thing that is facing humanity today, and it's so all pervasive, and it starts from the satanic belief. I mean, how can these people turn away from God and idolize Satan with the agenda that the Satanist movement has, and then just start to bring that down, because the pedophilia and the kidnapping of the children is only one part of what the satanic movement is all about.
That's right.
And people don't want to know it, and they try everything they can to either turn away from it or pretend I didn't hear that or something. And
now, you haven't had time to read 1,814, but
no.
I assume you skimmed through them. You see any negative ones in there?
No. I've never had a negative one about it.
Don't you find, too, that a lot of people really want to know what they can do to help?
Well, this is why, Noreen, I asked you to come back on with us, because this is something I think all of us would like. I mean, I just cry out inside, what can we do? You know, because we all over the world, this is not just a problem in Nebraska. This is not just a problem in the United States or even North America. This happens worldwide. I mean, look after the tsunami down in Sumatra, in that whole area, and the people that were grabbing these little children, and they were going to sell them or put them into the same program that Johnny and other kids have been put in. So this has got to stop. You know, Jesus said, "Suffer not the little children."
Well, I know Jim Rothstein and I were talking about it today, and he, too, and I think it was mentioned on the show by John DeCamp and maybe even Jim the night he was on, about the need for a task force.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that'd be fantastic.
To be given the opportunity and the, you know, leverage and everything to act, but that takes money there again. But people are going to have to speak out and do something because it's getting out of control. It's completely out of control.
Well, do you think it's getting worse, Noreen, or?
I think it is.
Do you really? Gosh.
It's being publicized more, that's for sure. But on the other hand, there are more kids that seem to be taken, and there's much more news coverage on it, too.
Yeah. Noreen, you have to speak up, remember.
There's much more news coverage on it than ever before. And that brings it to our attention. And I know some people say, well, it's only because it's in the news that you hear about it that you think there's more. But I disagree. I think there are more cases than we've ever seen before.
Just working with the increase in population around the world, you could really see where this is exactly what could happen.
And if we don't value the lives of small children, young children, then what kind of a nation will we become? We're fast on our way.
Yeah.
And I think that we're in a state of moral decay.
Definitely. Well, the children who are molested now will end up being perpetrators themselves. And it'll magnify itself. And that's been well documented. And
do you think there's any connection between any type of, just for lack of a better thought here, any type of chromosome damage that would be found in pedophiles?
Boy, that's a good
one. That
one.
might be derived from the heavy drug culture in our country?
You know, I don't know that we could document that, but I'd say
I don't think it's been documented, but I think it's worth exploring.
I think it's a very, very solid and good observation.
There's such heavy use of drugs, and that's well known, and we're into our second and third and probably more generation of drug abuse offspring. And if we have mutated any form of chromosome damage, then that might account for some of the activity that we're seeing, because there are pedophiles who are younger and younger than ever before, too.
Wow.
Teenagers.
Yeah.
And a pedophile who begins practicing pedophilia, so to speak, they can, in their lifetime, molest upwards of 300 children.
Absolutely.
Because they will continue to molest till they are too old and feeble to walk.
Jeez, my gosh.
They can do it as very old men or as very young men, and anything in between as far as an age bracket.
And the men are not necessarily the only ones. We have women doing it, too.
We have women doing it, too.
Yeah.
But the percentages are greater in the men.
The male population.
Yeah, the male population.
Well, it all goes back to the Illuminati/satanic movement in this country. And
but when you get to the point where there's a human life is not valued, then you've got real problems in a society.
Yeah, that's it.
And we're seeing evidence of that with the young people. When I think back to all that I've been through since day one of Johnny's kidnapping, and what that young man had to go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a horrible, horrendous thing for any family to have to endure.
Noreen, have you heard, or maybe Ted, have you heard what is this program, what's entailed in this program for once they kidnap a child, what do they go through? How long does the programming last? I mean, because I know they torture them, they get them onto drugs, they molest them. I mean, what are some of the
sleep deprivation, food deprivation, hypnosis, combination of all that.
Drugs, the sexual abuse, and then once they have them indoctrinated to a point where the kids just don't know from what, then they force them to commit a felony, usually, because that is also leverage, and it puts the fear factor into them that they could never run off and go to the police for help,
and
because they let them know, well, you've committed a felony.
And oftentimes that felony is murder.
And not only that,
that's correct.
They put the kids, they bring their children in for a human sacrifice, and I've talked to a number of survivors who told me this, and they put the knife above the victim's whatever, and the body in a particular location. It's all part of the ritual. And the child's hand is on the knife, and they tell the child to stash it or to go forward with it, to stab the person. And the children don't do it. So an adult comes along and puts his hand over top of hers and stabs the person. And then they tell the kid, see what you've done? And then that's where the guilty complex comes in. And that's where they blackmail the kids. Is that right, Noreen?
Well, that's exactly what Paul Benassi described.
Is that right?
And I've talked to probably, I guess in my 25 years I've interviewed over 200 of these survivors.
Really? My gosh.
I heard Rusty make reference to this federal trial or court case in Lincoln, Nebraska in 1999. I was in that courtroom when Rusty told that whole story to the judge.
What was that, Noreen?
I beg your pardon?
When was that? The story?
That was when Paul Benassi sued and won against Larry King.
Yeah.
And I was in the courtroom, and that was when I met Rusty for the first time. And I listened to him relate just about everything that he did tonight on the radio for the judge.
Is there anything he said in the courtroom he didn't say tonight?
Only the recent material, just about Gannon and anything that would be added since 1999. But everything that he related tonight about how it all worked, the organization, how Larry King interacted and treated him. He also spent time talking about how he got into this in the first place, who the person was that introduced him to Larry King.
Soto, he said.
Yeah.
Tell us about Soto. Did you mention Soto the other night, Noreen?
I didn't.
You want to tell us about him?
Well, he was a private investigator in Des Moines. And Rusty and Paul Benassi both have identified him. Rusty identified him as the man who introduced him to Larry King and that he was part of this whole network. Paul Benassi picked his photograph out of a lineup of photographs and told Roy Stevens, the private investigator, that is the man who brought the photographs of Johnny to a motel room the night before the kidnapping and said, this is the boy that we're going to take tomorrow. And on the back of the photograph, which was an 8 by 10, there was a diagram and an outline of our house and the street where Johnny would walk up to the corner and then how he would start his route. And Paul Benassi saw all of this, and he described this man, the way he acted, the way he dressed. He even described his aftershave lotion or cologne that he always wore. And this was just from seeing a black and white picture of the man. And he identified him as Soda, and he said the kids all called him Soda Pop.
Who was in that room, do you know?
Which room?
When Soto showed the picture, this is the boy we're going to kidnap tomorrow.
In the motel room, yeah.
Benassi said that Emilio was there, another man named Tony, and then Soda and Benassi, and then there was another kid, and he said his name was Mike.
Yeah, well, nobody knows what happened to Michael. Nobody knows his last name.
Sometimes he called him Mikey.